What is up, everybody? My name is Mitchell Breuer, and I'm back. It's been a minute since I've uploaded to YouTube. Uh, yeah, that's on me. So I apologize, but I'm testing out something different this week. This is what I'm going to be calling the Mitchell Brewer Show because I am super creative and don't know a good title for this. So we're just going to go with the Mitchell Brewer Show because I'm pretty sure that one isn't taken, as far as I know at least. But yeah, so this is going to be my weekly show where I talk about racing, mostly NASCAR, on what day is it today? Monday, every Monday after the weekend events. And yeah, so without further ado, let's jump into it. This week, NASCAR hosted their final doubleheader of the year at Dover International Speedway. It was an alright week. It wasn't anything like it was. I'll be honest, it wasn't the most memorable weekend of racing ever, and it was fine. It was fine. It wasn't. It's not a race that you're gonna remember, but same old, same old. Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, they show that they've been the class of the field, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but if you don't like it, your favorite driver needs to do better because they're just the class of the field right now, and that's just how it is in the sport. Is you see people get on these dominant runs. The last couple of years, it's been big threes. This year, it's the big two. It's Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick. But yeah, interestingly enough, though, I think that the focus this weekend really wasn't on the big two. It's more of on that playoff picture and a certain seven-time champ that's actually creeped his way back into the playoff picture despite literally everything going wrong for him this year. And that is Jimmie Johnson, who, after Saturday's race was in, he finished third on Sunday and he is back out, which is just, it speaks a lot to how good his teammate William Byron was this weekend, who is back in the playoffs on Sunday. And now it's a dogfight between him, Jimmie Johnson, William Byron, and Matt DiBenedetto, and the field, considering next weekend is Daytona International Speedway. I joked on Twitter, but I genuinely think that somebody like a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to come in and steal the show and win. And honestly, I think it's going to be chaotic. I love it. 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 I think it's way better here than at Indianapolis for sure, than at Richmond for sure, even though Richmond did create some classic playoff moments. I think that this is the perfect place to end the regular season, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I know a lot of people say that these races are just crapshoots and anybody can win, but there is some level of strategy that has to be played, especially for these three guys, because yeah, it's easy for anybody to say they need to just run up front. Big wrecks happen in the front. Big wrecks happen in the back. People wreck in the back of the field. People wreck in the middle of the field at Daytona. It's crazy, and you really do need to strategize and figure out how can we capitalize to have the best possible day in general. And I think it's going to be really fun, and I think it's going to be really chaotic. I think somebody from the outside, if I have to make a prediction right now, I think Jimmie Johnson misses the playoffs. I think Matt DiBenedetto, Daytona is a really strong racetrack, and I think that Penske Alliance, those three cars have been very, very good at Daytona and Talladega. As seen with Ryan Blaney's success, I think they're going to help out a little bit more this week and make sure that 21 car gets in. I think he makes the playoffs, and I still think that somebody outside that top 16 is going to win this weekend. I'm gonna say it. I think Ricky Stenhouse will win this weekend and jump into the playoffs. But it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot more interesting of a weekend at Dover. No offense to Dover. It was a very weekend. It wasn't anything to write home about. And I hate saying that. I'm a big NASCAR guy. And you could even call me a NASCAR homer because I think I think the product's a lot better than what people say it is. But this weekend, it just didn't do it for me. Even the Xfinity Series, it was kind of just they were better races, and I know a lot of people are going to say that's par for the course because the Xfinity Series is the best racing in NASCAR, and you're allowed to have that opinion, and you might not be wrong, and it could be argued, but it was even that this weekend was just kind of I don't know. It was I don't know. I appreciate these doubleheaders, and it's done a lot to get racing or get the schedule back on track. But it's just this weekend it just didn't work for me. I don't know why. And the Xfinity races were also interesting. You had Allgaier bounce back from his disagreement with AJ Allmendinger to go ahead and win again and win his first race of the season. Not again. He won for the first time on Saturday. And then he had Chase Briscoe, which was a good story. He came from the back after wrecking on Saturday to go ahead and win. And now he's, again, one race win ahead of Austin Cindric. I think those two are going to be battling for the championship all the way down to Phoenix. And I think it's going to be one of those two. I think that's very obvious. Those two have just been the best. Ford has two cars in the Xfinity Series, and they have the two best cars in the Xfinity Series. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what Daytona produces, especially since that their playoff bubble isn't exactly locked up either. You have a good look out that's brewing between Brandon Brown and Jeremy Clemens, and I think even somebody like Myatt Snyder, he can still come in and maybe play spoiler this weekend at Daytona. So, speaking of big, grand named races, also this weekend was the Indianapolis 500. And I didn't watch it as closely as I did previous years just because there is a lot of NASCAR on. I was also watching my team, the Boston Celtics, sweep. I'm sorry for headphone users, but the Boston Celtics, they swept the Sixers. No big deal. They're going on to the playoffs. But this is a racing podcast, not about the Celtics, so I'll shut up about them. But yeah, the Indy 500 was also on this weekend. I had it streaming on my computer while I watched the other two events, and it seemed like it was an okay race. And there might be some people that disagree with me. Super lame way to end the race, and I know there's purists out there that say overtime's a gimmick and blah 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 blah. It's a 500-mile race and it should end with the 500. Nah, that was boring. You have a big event. NBC pushed this event to be one of the biggest races, or like one of their biggest events of the year, and they pushed this hard, and then it ends super anticlimactically with 3 laps to go because there's a caution, big wreck. Takuma Sato coasts for 3 laps under caution, and he goes and wins. I'm just not a fan of that, man. That's so boring. And maybe that's just me being a NASCAR homer. And I like the IndyCar series. I think it's a fun series to watch. I've never been as into it as I have been at NASCAR, but that's because I grew up with NASCAR. But God, what a boring way to end it. No red flag, really? No overtimes? That's just... I like seeing races end under yellow. And it's amazing to me that that's been a big debate on social media this week, or like since the end of the Indy 500. I shouldn't say this week since 500 ended yesterday, but it's amazing to me that that's been a big debate online. Is that, oh, should they have red flagged it? Should there have been an overtime? Oh, no. No, I think NASCAR does this perfectly. As a viewer, I don't care if it goes over a couple laps. I think that's more fun because you get that overtime excitement. And I know everybody doesn't want to be the stick and ball sport. And I know Nick Broomberg, everybody's favorite journalist on Twitter, he tweeted out that only in stick and ball sports do they go overtime in a tie. NASCAR's the only one that goes to overtime when there's not a tie or something like that. I don't get it. I don't understand how people can prefer ending under caution versus ending with a green flag run and a checkered flag. I just don't get it. Maybe that's just maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I like the gimmicks too much, but that's just me. That's my takeaway from the Indy 500. It's, as a person that isn't a full-time IndyCar viewer, it doesn't make me want to tune in next week to the race at Gateway. I might, but it definitely doesn't do anything for me in that sense. Yeah, so that was this weekend. That was what was big this weekend. One big thing that happened last weekend, I was going to make a video about it, and I just never got around to doing it. The big talk of the town heading before going to Dover this weekend in NASCAR was Kyle Larson, who's not even racing. He's still suspended after saying a racist slur in an iRacing event. That became a very big topic with all the silly season moves that are being made and everything, because it wasn't even Kyle Larson that said anything. It was Tony Stewart that came out and said something along the lines of NASCAR needs to get off their butt, and I'm going to say butt because I can't say the other word because I don't want to swear. But yeah, he said they need to get off their butt and reinstate them. And when I first saw this, I was confused because I remember hearing that Kyle Larson hadn't applied for to be reinstated yet. So that's more on him than it is on NASCAR, because truthfully, and I could be completely off with this, going off of what NASCAR has done, I think that if he wanted to apply for reinstatement, I think he could probably be reinstated by now if he really want. If he want, I think he. I'll get to why I think he does want to be back in NASCAR. But if he wanted to reinstate himself and did it, I think he'd be reinstated, because that's been how NASCAR is. And I know there's the conspiracy theorists that say NASCAR wants him out, blah, 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 dumb, dumb, dumb. No, I think he would be reinstated. I think he completed his, and I could be wrong about this, I think he completed his sensitivity training even before racing resumed at Darlington. But, and you know what, I get why NASCAR, so let's say if that is the case and he did apply for reinstatement, I would understand why NASCAR would want to keep him suspended at least through the Darlington races and maybe another race, just because it doesn't pay to suspend the guy when he hasn't been suspended for any races, even though Kyle doesn't have a ride and it wouldn't have mattered anyways. But to say that, I'll get to it. So everybody's kind of confused about that, and all of a sudden a tweet comes out from Bob Hockress saying NASCAR has reinstated, let me rephrase that. A tweet came out saying that, from Bob Hockress, saying that NASCAR has talked to Kyle Larson and he has applied to be reinstated, but there hasn't been a change yet, which was interesting. And this kind of fired some people up, saying, well, why haven't they reinstated him? This is, they don't want him back. That's so stupid. You have a guy like Jeremy Clements. He was able to be reinstated right away. Why isn't Kyle being able to be reinstated right away? And I was also confused by this, because I was like, it's been a couple of months, and it's not even going to matter if they reinstate Kyle Larson, because he doesn't have a ride. He probably won't run another race this season. Why don't they just allow him to be reinstated? Then it gets even more confusing, because then you have an Associated Press article by Jenna Fryer, which is a great read, and I really highly recommend it, because it kind of talks about everything Kyle has done ever since being suspended, and kind of the stuff that he's been trying to do to better himself, which I applaud, because I think that's something he absolutely needed to do, and I'm kind of glad that he hasn't just bragged about it nonstop. I think that's a really smart move on his part, and the fact that he's going out and trying to better himself, good for him, because after everything that happened, that's exactly what he needs to do. He needs to take a step back and look at himself. And it was a really good read. I highly recommend that you read it. But one of the interesting little tidbits from that article was that Kyle Larson himself said that he had not applied to be reinstated by NASCAR, which contradicted what Bob said minutes prior when he said, "Oh, he's applied to be reinstated, but NASCAR said no." So that was weird. And then Podcast follows it up with another tweet saying NASCAR kind of took it a couple of steps backwards and said, "Oh, he hasn't. We've talked about him being reinstated, but he hasn't actually done the formal reinstatement process," which is kind of what I thought all along, because I thought he would be reinstated. And it kind of, again, I'm not a big fan of Tony Stewart coming out and just dissing NASCAR for that. That was kind of my takeaway from it, because I do hope Kyle Larson. I hope the best for him. I hope he gets himself. I hope he makes himself a better person, and hopefully he can be reinstated and come back to NASCAR after he's made the changes that he needs to make after saying the racist slur that he said. But it makes me mad that Tony Stewart comes out and says that NASCAR needs to get off their butt. Tony Stewart is an owner in NASCAR, and he needs to. I don't think that was a very professional statement from him. And I know I'm probably going to get flack for saying that, but you can't just come out and say something like that, especially when Tony Stewart's one of the more popular guys, and people really feed off of what he says, and it kind of feeding that mob that's saying, "Oh, NASCAR is banning Kyle Larson," when no, that's not what they ever did. They just suspended him. He needed to go through sensitivity training, apply for reinstatement, and come back that way, just like everybody else. But yeah, I don't know. That didn't sit quite right with me, and I don't know. Maybe that's me being. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be some people that don't exactly agree with that, but that's just my takeaway on that. And I think that that wasn't something he needed to say. And he said it multiple times. He said it to CBS Sports. I think he said it in an interview with Jeff Gluck, and I think he said it somewhere else too. But this also was very interesting that Tony Stewart was saying this because he's got a car, maybe two. I think Eric Almirola will be back. I wouldn't expect him to leave, but I know that I think his contract situation is also interesting. But the big one is that 14 car, and everybody started saying, okay, Larson to the 14, just put it in print. It's over. If Tony Stewart's saying all this, he's got to be wanting to hire Kyle Larson. And I think there's a degree of truth to that. I think Tony Stewart does want Kyle Larson racing for him, and I think that it could happen. But I'm gonna kind of go a different route with this. I don't think Kyle Larson will be in the 14 next year, just because in the state of the world right now, I don't think it's a great marketing move for Storehouse Racing to sign somebody like Kyle Larson, even if he's made that change. Because, and I know a lot of people are going to be saying, but he's won the dirt races. He's proven himself to be one of the best race car drivers in the world on dirt. And yeah, that's true. But I don't think a lot of sponsorships are really going to care, especially since dirt isn't like as widely watched as NASCAR. I'm not taking anything away from dirt, guys. I'm not taking anything away from dirt, guys. Please don't come at me. But I think that that's still going to be a gigantic issue. And even if you run with the argument that Gene Haas is going to fill two cars with the Haas automation sponsorship, which I don't think Gene Haas wants to do, even for Kyle Larson, because right now Cole Custer is running, I think, strictly pretty much off of that Haas automation. I think he's had maybe a couple other sponsors throughout the year, but it's been mostly the Haas car. And I don't think Gene Haas wants to do that. Not to mention, you got other sponsors that you have to worry about that may not want to be associated with Larson. And you saw Chip Ganassi, where all their sponsors pretty much said, "We're out if he stays." But if he sorry, my neighbors were making noise and it kind of distracted me. But if he's not there, we stay. And I think that could still be a very big factor at Storehouse, like I said, especially in the world that we live in right now. But I don't think that just rules out the complete Larson to Storehouse connection, because the other big silly season news that came out right before this weekend was that Corey LaJoie, the driver of the number 32 Go Fast Racing Ford, he's announcing that he's out and he's not going to be coming back. That team is affiliated with Storehouse Racing, and I think that if I have to make a big, bold prediction right now, I think that is where Kyle Larson ends up, because that one's not going to rely on sponsorship as much. And Storehouse doesn't need to exactly put their own reputation on the line and allow Kyle Larson to kind of have this big comeback story where it makes him look better. And it's not just him. It's kind of like Kurt Busch thing, where he had kind of regroup after threatening to, I don't think he well, his interaction with Jerry Punch at Homestead, which was kind of the icing on the cake with Kurt Busch. I think Kyle Larson is going to have something like that, and uh, I think that's where it's going to end off for Kyle. I think he's going to be. I think that's probably where he ends up. I think Ford really likes Chase Briscoe, and I think they'd be willing to throw a little money at him to drive that 14 car. I also wouldn't. This is going to kind of sound far fetched, and it probably is going to be stupid, and I'll probably regret saying it, but I also wouldn't rule out Austin Cindric. I think Penske could throw a little bit of money. I think those two are going to be in really good cup rides. I don't think either one is going to be in a bad ride, and I don't think Austin Cindric's going to end up at Storehouse Racing, but it's a possibility. I think those two young guys are going to be very marketable, especially Chase Briscoe, who has a really great story, and he's worked hard for where he's at. I think he's going to end up in the 14 next year, but I do think Kyle Larson will be backing up next season, and I think that's where it kind of ends off. I think people are kind of rushing with the judgment that Larson's going to end up in the 14. I think he'll be in the 32 next season, but that's just my takeaway on it. I'd love to hear yours as I wrap up the first episode of the Mitchell Breuer Show. I think I'm going to do this. We might do this on Fridays just to do a little prediction show, even though I gave my prediction for who I think is going to win on Saturday at Daytona. But yeah, it's definitely going to be Mondays that I'm going to upload this, and hopefully it works out. Hopefully I'm uploading more than just 3 months out of, or every 3 months. But yeah, it's something I'm going to try and have fun with, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear your opinions on the Larson situation, the Dover situation. What do you think of the Indy 500? Do you think that race should have been red flagged, or are you cool with it ending under caution? I want to hear it all from you guys. I would love to hear your feedback. I also write for Popular Speed. I got a story coming out about Jimmy Johnson and his weekend with some exclusive quotes from his press conference after race on Sunday. So look forward to that, and be sure to check out Popular Speed for a lot of your NASCAR news and updates, as well as follow me on Facebook at Mitchell Doe Sports and Twitter at MitchellB66. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you're staying safe. If you're going back to college, I wish you luck with that. I just graduated last semester, and I miss it already, so I hope that you have fun with it. And if you're just living life, I hope you're living life to the fullest, and I hope you have a great week, and I will see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. I have been Mitchell Breuer.